this edition of Public Forum. I'm Anurag Punetha with you. In his first reshuffle, Prime Minister, since he assumed charge in May 2019 in his second term, he changed the very face of his cabinet, replaced 7 cabinet ministers and inducted 36 new faces in his cabinet. Among the Minister of States who were promoted were like Anurag Thakur and Hardeep Singh Puri are among 15 new cabinet ministers, along with Sarbanand Sonowal, Jyotiraj Scindia, Narayan Rane, Bhupender Yadav and Ashwini Vaishnav, who were given cabinet ministries. Now he has 77 ministers in his team and nearly half of them are new. But resignations of seniors made rather big news than the new ministers. Like IT and Law Minister Ravi Shankar Prasad, Health Minister Harshvardhan, Environmental Minister Prakash Javadekar stood out on a day. Particularly Ravi Shankar Prasad's resignation was a talk of the town, as he was seen to be in the core team of government's troubleshooters. A veteran in the BJP, Mr. Prasad, like Mr. Javadekar, is among the very few who were ministers even in the previous BJP government of Atal Bihari Vajpayee. So what message Prime Minister Modi has given to his cadre by his move? Mere work or professionalism or some social engineering as well, as he also picked 7 faces from Uttar Pradesh, because we know that in next year 2022 early part of the February and March, Uttarakhand and UP would be going for the assembly elections. Other faces were like Anupriya Patel, Pankaj Chaudhary, BL Verma are from the OBC class, which BJP leader in UP says make up to 50% of the voters in the state, and 3 other ministers like Kaushal Kishore, Bhanu Pratap Singh Verma and SP Singh Baghel from Agra are from the scheduled caste category. So, I mean, this is the kind of engineering that Prime Minister Modi has also done. So, we are going to discuss about all these things, and especially his move in coming time, that how he is going to give the message to general public and especially to his cadre as well in this edition of Public Forum. And joining me for the discussion is political analyst Mr. Patkat Pine, who has joined me from Calcutta online. Very warm welcome to the show, Patkat. Well, how do you see, my first question, that since yesterday many people are talking about Prime Minister Modi's move, that probably he has given a very loud and clear message that only work will count. And probably his known face or other things would not be a matter of discussion. So how do you see this move by Prime Minister Modi?
Anurag, first of all, it can be interpreted at different levels. Some critics are trying to say that, no work has happened. That's why some people have been removed. It's not so. For example, from 2014 onwards, in 2014, I remember India's annual GDP was around $2 trillion. Today, in spite of all the challenges, it has crossed the $3 trillion mark. We have a, record foreign exchange reserve of in excess of $600 billion. Massive, modernization of defense forces have happened. A lot of structural reforms have happened. So, you can also in one way say that these are routine reshuffling. Every government in the past also have done. That's one way of looking at it. And in a cadre-based organization like BJP, some people at times go back to the organization from the government and new faces are given chance. That's one way of looking at it. The other way is that it is also a reality that in the last 1.5 years, because of the pandemic, a lot of planned projects or agenda of Prime Minister Modi may have got stalled or have got delayed because the priority went towards the pandemic management. So in the next 1 or 2.5 years or 3 years that is there for this government before the next Lok Sabha election, I think it is not just about doing the work, it is about doing it at a very fast pace. It's about execution. That is very important. So he is bringing in, number one, professionals, those who are not just politicians but are extremely professionally successful in their own personal professional life also. At the same time, they are young, so they are bringing in new ideas. They are creative. They are fresh blood. So they would be very keen to prove themselves, the young bloods who would be, for example, if you say someone like Meenakshi Lekhi, and extremely, you have interacted a lot with her. I have also interacted considerably with her. And she is extremely talented, professionally very successful. So such people, when they get a chance, they work with new vigor. That is very important for the government. That's another way of looking at it. Third important, as you also had mentioned, that there is an election coming. So there is a lot of political calculations and maneuvering that is also important to be done. There are critical elections going to happen in Gujarat, Uttarakhand, Himachal Pradesh, and of course Uttar Pradesh, which is very critical for this government. So a larger political representation has been attempted. Number four, it's also about inclusion of some of the key critical allies of the government, of this part of the government, who have stayed with the government through thick and thin. So giving them larger representation now, it is very important, because post 2019 there has been certain changes in the political calculations of the country. If you look at after certain debacle of the of BJP, say in states like West Bengal, or say in in Bihar, JDU and some of the smaller parties played a very critical role to make sure that they come back to power. So JDU or Lok Jan Shakti Party, in the new dynamics of LJP after some internal problems they are being given greater representation. And last but not the least, some of the senior members who may have been asked to resign, or they have been replaced. One reason can be that it is not just important to do the work, but it is also important to be seen to be strong and doing the work from a position of strength. For example, the entire controversy around Twitter, when Ravi Shankar Prasad's Twitter handle was blocked by Twitter, and he came and wrote on Twitter that my handle has been blocked, there has been several people who have been responding and saying that, why are you behaving like a victim? You are a minister. You should be taking stringent action against Twitter. Twitter has been doing a lot of nonsense in this country, let me tell you, very, very categorically. It is very important to take the bull by its horn and show that you cannot, this is a sovereign country, an assertive country, a powerful country. You just can't take us for granted. Some actions have been taken against Twitter, but perhaps there is a perception, especially among those who are BJP supporters or supporters of government, that this action is too little too late. So that is one perception that may have played a role. May have. I am not trying to say this is the reason. Another reason is that there are certain...
But this is very perceptible reason, right? Since yesterday, many people are, in fact, not only naysayers, but also supporters are feeling, if not happy, let's say the content that probably Prime Minister Modi has given this very subtle message that if you cannot handle the pressure, if you cannot do your work, probably there is no place in the ministry.
Absolutely. For example, if you see Ministry of HRD, we know that there is a major problem with our history books. A lot of history we have studied from our childhood is concocted. That is not the reality.
That's right.
There was a requirement for massive change in certain historical context, and who is shown as a hero and who is not mentioned at all. There are so many, regional icons which the country doesn't know about. So those reforms perhaps are pending, and perhaps that is the reason. As an HRD minister, you have to be interactive. You have to show that you are somebody in control. You are changing the dynamics of India's education culture, because the new generation talks about artificial intelligence. You talk about genome research. You talk about this is a different world. So that is important. Your ability to communication, and given the standard that Prime Minister himself sets for himself and others, the way he communicates, it is very important for any minister to communicate with the young minds of this country, because the young minds are strong supporters of the government, but at the same time are very strong critics also. They are unabashed. So when they criticize, they will criticize. So that is why new, fresh bloods are being brought in, and they will work with a vigor. There is 3 years, and of course, because of the pandemic, a lot of issues have happened where the government's work could not have been done, and it is also important, Anurag, I want to mention one thing. The government did a lot of good work during the pandemic. It is not easy to actually vaccinate 140 crore people, to give free ration additional to 80 crore people, to become self-sufficient in making PPEs, to create an active pharma ingredient supply chain, to decouple from China, and at the same time fighting the Chinese in the borders. That is the kind of communication that was important for some ministers to be done. Maybe there was something lacking, and the kind of performance some of the top ministers have done, for example, Amit Shah, whether it's Piyush Goyal or Nitin Gadkari or Rajnath Singh, and apart from the Prime Minister himself, I think the standards they set is so very high that for some others, even if they have done reasonably good, perhaps it was not good enough. For example, there's a controversy around the OTTs, the web series.
Yeah,
There's a lot
yeah.
of issues going on. It is important to be seen that you are doing something. Look, we are a very sensitive country.
Yeah.
You cannot just keep on hurting sentiments, and it is important for the minister to say that, look, you have the freedom of expression. Your freedom of expression is not absolute. You have to take strong decisions. You
Right,
just
right,
can't continue like that. So that is another era. Today's era is different, where people want everything to be done at the speed of thought.
Very true.
And that reactive approach is important. Maybe
Okay.
that is the reason. I'm giving my personal opinion.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, what you are saying probably is right in a sense that it is a general perception since yesterday. Okay, but my next question probably to you, Pathikar, that despite taking the many new faces, if the seniors would have been dropped, but there is also a demand from the organization, from Sanghathan, the BJP organization especially. Would they be sent to the organization, to the BJP? Would not it be the prudent that seniors ministers should be given extra responsibility of taking charge of the party in coming election?
You are absolutely right, Anurag. See, the reason why BJP has emerged as the single largest party and one of the biggest political parties in the world is because it is an extremely disciplined, cadre-based organization. You will not see anybody criticizing the decisions within the party. You will not see anybody cribbing. They will just do what they are told to do, and they'll go back to the work that they're assigned. So I'm sure many of them, see, these people are also, those who have resigned, they are also extremely successful in their own way. So they would go back to the organization, and I'm sure they will do incredibly well in that also, because very challenging and critical elections are coming. These people, and we have to remember, all of them, most of them have actually won elections and come. So their ability, their understanding of grassroots politics, they have been associated with the party for decades, is very important. So we have to understand another thing, that for any political party, it is not just about running the government, but it's also about keeping the organizational strength intact. It may so be that some of these people would be asked to go back to the organization and make the organization stronger again because of the challenges of the ensuing elections coming. So it is a balance. So it is not that if somebody has been asked to resign, it's not a demotion. It's not at all a demotion. It may so happen that he would go back. For example, for a long time, Mr. Amit Shah was not a minister. He was just the president of the party.
That's right.
And there is a rule that nobody remains the president and remain a minister at the same time. So once he came to the government, eventually he appointed Mr. J.P. Nadda as the Mr. J.P. Nadda was appointed as the next president. So I think some people will go back. It's not that these people are retiring from politics. They'll go back to the party. And this is where there's a difference between a cadre-based organization like this and maybe some other political parties. I'm not trying to undermine other political parties, but this is how BJP, we have seen, has been operating.
I mean, talk of the Bengal is also very important. After 2nd May, the result announced, there was a very, kind of a dull moment for the BJP seeing the result. But the BJP and Prime Minister Modi has also given a strong message to the cadre of the BJP in Bengal. Taking the 3 faces and replacing old ones. How do you see that the BJP, the Prime Minister is also given the message to the BJP cadres in Bengal in coming time?
Yes. Well, first of all, the representation has increased of North Bengal, because North Bengal is the area from which BJP won the maximum number of seats in case of Lok Sabha election of 2019 also, and in this election also. So you see, North Bengal is now being represented more like Mr. John Barla or Nishit Pramanik. That is one. Secondly, the Matua community, Shantanu Thakur is a young leader. Matua community has been very strong, ardent supporter of the BJP because of the Citizenship Amendment Act. The Prime Minister, when he went to Bangladesh and he visited one of the most important shrines of the Matua community, that was some very symbolic incident before the West Bengal election, or perhaps during the West Bengal election. So there is a representation. Yes, that is true. But maybe some disciplinary actions it is being talked about that some of the ministers from Bengal who have been dropped and perhaps because of disciplinary reasons, because of certain infighting in the West Bengal party internal issues. That is one. But we are seeing a trend of more representation, more importance being given by North Bengal, because through Nishit Pramanik and John Barla. And there is a perception, there has been a perception for a long time, that North Bengal has been deprived. Most of the development has been South Bengal and Calcutta centric. So there is a perceptible effort towards North Bengal, and especially because of the Siliguri corridor and those regions, North Bengal is very, very challenging and very, very critical from a security point of view also. Remember, Nishit Pramanik has been made a Minister of State for Home Affairs.
He is just 35 years old.
Yes. So he is 35 and he is extremely dynamic. He won the election. He brought in some very, prominent community like the Rajbanshis towards BJP, and he has been made Minister of State for Home, apart from some other department, which means the Ministry of Home Affairs is going to give a little more importance towards certain issues of Bengal. That because Bengal is a border state, so that it is actually sending a message. But yes, post-poll violence has been an issue in Bengal. I think a little more have to be done. We have to see how these ministers perform and whether it actually brings a change in terms of impression in Bengal, so far as BJP is concerned, to take them to a newer height in 2024 or 26.
So in a sense, in a combined sense, we can say that this move is a quite pragmatic and political savvy as well, because he has tried to give a message to the cadre as well that the young faces are welcome. If you work hard, then you can be promoted and you can go to the places. There is no dull moment probably. I mean, if you cannot take your seat granted, a position for granted. And what happened in Uttarakhand especially, I mean, the way he handed over the reins of the Uttarakhand to a very young face, Mr. Dhami, as a young face, and now he has given Kumaon region another chance. I mean, Mr. Ajay Bhatt has been given a seat in the cabinet as well. So probably this is the message that he is also trying to give.
Anurag, you're right. It's very important for any cadre-based organization, and especially an organization. Look, what BJP has done over the last, say, 1 decade is that it has brought in interest of young generations or people below 40 into politics. That was absent for a long time. So those people who are active in Twitter, whether in favor of BJP or against BJP, that is immaterial. But they are concerned about the country. They're talking about politics. They're not just talking about Bollywood and cricket alone. Yeah. So it is important to send this message that, look, if you are passionate, if you are working, if you have worked for the organization, and even if you have not been a party member, but you are a very, very strong professional, you have been successful professionally. For example, some of those who are been inducted this time and previously also are technocrats and ex-bureaucrats. If you have performed, you get a chance to actually lead from the front in a ministry. And that is a very, very important lesson. Unlike in some of the other parties where dynasty rules, this is a very important message that is being given, that it has to be a combination of veterans with their wisdom and young bloods coming with creative thoughts. Some of the best organizations in the world, be it Intel or Microsoft or many others, they sometimes just take the most critical challenges to just young minds who are not from that field at all. And they think in a very different way. That is also being attempted this time, where people who don't come from that particular stream are being given that charge to see whether they can grasp and bring some new ideas, not completely out of the box ideas, which are not conventional. That is a very important message. We have to see how it works.
But on a lighter note, one was, there was one can perceptibly see yesterday, the people, especially the ministers who were dropped, were also sitting smilingly and were giving sound bites to the media as well, that they are happy the way the Prime Minister Modi has picked and chose his new team. So probably this is the new phase and new era in the Indian political scene.
Yes, you're right. See, they are all veteran politicians. They have been in parliament for decades. They have achieved all that they have to achieve. So if they are asked to resign and go back to organizational work, they don't look at it as a demotion. It's just being assigned from one department to another. It's all same for them. And that is the kind of work, that is how an organization is supposed to behave. And that is something very healthy. Nobody is sulking. Nobody is saying that, why me? So that is a very important message, and the kind of dedication these people have towards the party particularly. And that is something that, we have to learn, even in our wherever we work, that, when the organization says you have to do it, they just do silently. They don't ask questions. And that is a kind of discipline, perhaps, is the reason that a political party have come up from 2 seats in 1980s to 300 plus today. It is above everything else the discipline that the party has, that if you are told something to be done, you have to do it, and everybody will just follow it. That is something that is something has to be accepted.
Okay. Final question. The challenge is not yet over. He has, rejigged his party and his cabinet probably. The next year is also very challenging. UP, Uttarakhand, Goa, and later part of that year, next year, are also very crucial elections. So we can say that this would be a very challenging time for the BJP as well.
Absolutely, Anurag. These are the times that whichever political party is in power, it is very challenging for them. It's an issue of life versus livelihood. Which one you want to save? You see what is happening in Mussoorie or Shimla. You have just allowed the lockdown to get over, and people are thronging those places in millions. While it is a boom time for hotel industry, but there is a fear of a revival of corona. So you have to manage the economy, because a lot of organizations, a lot of MSMEs are in trouble right now. Efforts are being made, but it's going to take time to make sure that the economy, in spite of the fact it is a $3 trillion economy, in spite of the fact that the GST revenues are up, there are challenges, and we know that is one thing. We have a challenge in the border also. That is another thing. You have a burgeoning population. You have to create the next generation of jobs for them. You have to create new universities. You have to have different streams. You have to create better cultural integration. So the momentum that has been lost because of 1.5 years of a pandemic has to be taken revived and taken forward, so that by 2024 we are in a position that in the next, say, from 2024 onward, in the next 4, 5 or 6 years, we reach that level of $5 trillion economy. Let's understand, when you have reached the $3 trillion mark, there would be countries across the world, there will be big tech giants who would try to undermine you. And there are political challenges also. So you have to make sure that while you try to save lives and livelihood together, you are not misunderstood. Your communication remains perfect. And when you have to deal with 140 crore people, you would be criticized at times, whatever you do. So you have to manage. It is just a rejig. It doesn't mean that the work is done. It's because the challenge is huge that new blood has been brought in. Because the challenge is huge. Because you have to work with a new vigor. And that happens when, you see with sports team, with cricket teams and the football teams also. It's not that the team which has won a World Cup plays the next World Cup as well. You see half of them would get dropped, and the new fresh blood is brought in. Not everybody is a Ronaldo. That is how it is. And it's because of the challenges are there that they are preparing themselves for the challenge. And it's good for the country as well.
That's right. That's right. So message is very loud and clear to general public, to his cadre as well. Prime Minister in his first reshuffle since the time he assumed office in his second term in 2019, May 2019, he changed the very face of his cabinet, and that message was very clear. He replaced 7 senior cabinet ministers, inducted 36 new faces, and gave a very clear-cut message that only the work will be given the priority. Anurag Thakur, Hardeep Singh Puri are among the 15 new cabinet ministers, along with Sarbanand Sonowal, Jyotiraj Scindia, Narayan Rane, Bhupinder Yadav and Ashwini Vaishnav, who were given the cabinet ministers. But what is very important for the BJP and his party, that the next year BJP would be facing the tough challenge in states like Uttar Pradesh and Uttarakhand especially. This is a rejig and probably a very clear message to the cadre that you have to work to win the trust of the people. Thank you very much, Padkar, for joining and talking to Lok Sabha TV. That's all we have in this edition of Public Forum. Thank you very much for watching.